Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the Carlos M Show with me, Carlos M. And today we're going to talk a little bit about Secretary of Defense Austin's speech at the Reagan National Library. And also, we're going to touch on some other items in the news cycle. But I wanted to particularly touch base on uh, General Austin's assessment of our adversary, China. Here's General Austin when he begins his speech, actually touching base on China, and this is partly how he begins.
Increasingly assertive and autocratic China. And that's what I'd like to focus on today. Now, President Biden has said that we are in stiff competition with the People's Republic of China. And as he's made clear, Beijing is the only competitor capable of combining its economic, diplomatic, military, and technological power to mount a sustained challenge to a stable and open international system.
So there he goes on to reiterate the administration's stance that China is not an adversary, but a competitor, and that they present challenges and competition rather than a threat. So he goes on to say the following.
So we've got to be clear about the challenge of China and what we need to do to meet it. I'd like to focus today on the security dimensions of this competition. Because we've seen two decades of breakneck modernization by the People's Liberation Army. And China's military is on pace to become a peer competitor to the United States in Asia.
Now, notice that he refuses to call this a threat, which is clearly a threat if you really parse his words. Their modernization, they've already tested a hypersonic missile and hit a target with it. So while we're trying to meet the challenge, that's how we're going to pursue it. We're going to pursue it. We're going to take our time. We're not going to fuss too much about how to go on and about the issue. Make no mistake, the people in general in China, very nice people. The government, which is a communist government, Chinese Communist Party, CCP, People's Liberation Army, these are not competitors. Think about it. They're adversaries. We are adversaries. We are not competitors. China doesn't compete with the world. They copy, they steal technology, they steal ideas, they reverse engineer everything, and then they replicate it. So make no mistake that China is not a competitor. They are an adversary. And we have those adversaries right here at home with so-called socialists, which is nothing other than communism in disguise. If you don't believe me, go and read Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto, and you will be able to put together the so-called socialists in this country's actions along with their current actions. Also, Mark Levin has a very good book out there. It's called American Marxism. I recommend it. Go ahead and check it out. He talks about it and he describes in detail, or he breaks it down what you've already witnessed or are continuing to witness as we go along. If we don't start viewing China the government of China, the communist government of China, as an adversary, and we just choose to view them just as a competitor. You know what a competitor is? The two car lots down, one down the road from the other, where they put up balloons and try to offer different deals to sell cars. That's competition. You competing in a sporting event. That's competition. See who can build the baddest, biggest nuclear weapon or fastest weapon. It's not competition. That is a threat. And we all know that China has anything that's remotely more defensive in their arsenal. It's all offensive. Hypersonic missiles are not defensive weapons. They are offensive weapons. Think about it. So the Chinese Communist Party is trying to expand its ideology and their power over the world. They have been flying threatening flights over Taiwan, flexing their muscle. Why? Because our administration views them as competitors, not adversaries. The reaction to all of their movements have been appeasing. We experienced this when this president was in the administration during the Obama years. It was policy of appeasement, and we're back to that. We're not here to appease anybody. We're here to produce, be productive, help out the world, and keep them from regimes such as this who are oppressive in nature. Don't believe me? Check out what they do to the Muslim Uyghurs. And we have a lot of people, especially young people. Some of them are athletes that kind of apologize to the Chinese government because all they want is money and power. But it will serve them little if the Communist Chinese Party overtakes the world. You'll be allowed to be rich, but only if you support the ideology. And they can take that away at any given time, which has been done to a few of the millionaires that have emerged out of China. So we can continue to view the Chinese Communist Party as a competitor or an adversary. I think that this is a big mistake. I think that Secretary Austin is actually a disgrace to this country, to the department he serves. And, the Department of Defense used to be, the secretary used to be called the Secretary of War. Now they changed it to Secretary of Defense as a euphemism, just to kind of seem like it's a softer position. Now, that said, please make no mistake, I'm not hawkish whatsoever on China. I do not think that our country should be involved in any wars if possible. However, I also believe that our government should not be appeasing any oppressive regimes such as Cuba, such as China, and any other communist regime that's out there or oppressive regime, which we don't have to deal with the Soviets anymore. However, Russia is still kind of an oligarchy, so that's another type of government that we need to look out for. Of course, their strength has diminished, and that of China has increased. So go figure. Nevertheless, you also got North Korea, which is someone to be reckoned with, but that's also controlled by the Chinese. If you look at any of the regimes out there, and we also have Iran on the other side, that is also an oppressive regime that are all seeking to destroy the United States financially, uh, culturally, and any which way they can, because we're the only country in this world that people flock to get away from oppressive regimes. You don't see anybody else flocking to Cuba or flocking to China to be protected from the so-called racist, terrible American way of life. So those are things that I wanted you to think about. In other news, uh, we have several things there. Biden, of course, had a phone call with President Putin, warning him that Ukraine threat is mounting, and that there will be repercussions, which we know that all those repercussions will not be of meaningful at all to Putin. Putin is just laughing in our face, just like the rest of the other leaders around. We seen a lot of COVID protests increasing around the world. Germany, for example, they have been going out to the streets, and there a lot of governments are using this coronavirus to kind of inflict several means of oppressing their people. And one of those is there's a funny thing here where there was a Australia. I visited Australia a long time ago. I lived there for a little while. I loved it till I started noticing that their government is really, the people don't run the government there. The government run the people. And a lot of people like to think of Australia as a bastion of freedom, which is not. First, they went ahead and they got rid of all the legally armed citizens. They disarmed them, and now they have total control. There's an Australian woman. The police came to my door and took me to COVID quarantine camp. Told me you have no choice. Uh, Haley Hodgson, 26. She moved from Darwin to Melbourne, according to Real Clear Politics, to escape the lockdowns, only to find herself locked up in a COVID camp. Here she is talking a little bit about that.
Well, it's a horrible feeling. You feel like you're in prison. You feel like you've done something wrong. It's inhumane what they're doing. Like you are so small. They just overpower you, and you're literally nothing. It's like you do what we say, or you're in trouble. We'll lock you up for longer. Yeah, they were even threatening me that if I was to do this again, we will extend your time in here.
So there you have it. Haley Hodgson, 26, that was carried away. She had returned from a 14-day detention at Howard Springs, 2,000 people capacity COVID camp outside of Darwin, I guess. And that's where the regional COVID cases are transported by authorities. Now, she talks a little bit about how the police blocked her driveway. She walked out and said, what's going on? Are you guys testing me for COVID? What's happening? And then they told her, no, you're getting taken away and you have no choice. You're going to Howard Springs. You either come with us now and we'll put you in the back of the divvy van, or you can have the choice to get a COVID cab. So, of course, she chose the COVID cab because they told her that if they take her, they were going to hand her a $5,000 fine. 5,000 Australian is about the same. It's a little less than $4,500. So, of course, she didn't want that to happen, and she says that she didn't consent to that. She doesn't understand why she could just self-isolate at home like the other people were doing. And they told her that they'd just been told by the higher-ups where to take her, and that's all there was to it. So Melbourne has been having a lot of protests out there. Of course, they are handled with a heavy hand. They get water cannon, etc., tear gas, etc., etc. The other thing with this COVID deal is there's a guy in Germany. Reuters was reporting that, as a matter of fact, it was today, December 7th. He killed his wife and 3 young children before taking his own life because he had faked a vaccination certificate and feared that his children would be taken away from him when the forgery was discovered. That's what a German prosecutor said Tuesday. They found the 2 adults, which were both 40, and 3 children, ages 4, 8, and 10, dead from gunshot wounds in the home in Königs Wusterhausen, which is south of Berlin. And they found a note where the guy said that he had forged a vaccination certificate for his wife, and that her employer found out, prompting the couple to fear they would be arrested and lose their children. I think that was a little extreme, but you have to ask yourself, why would someone go to that extreme just for forging a vaccine passport? My question is, and I guess I would have to research this, what are the consequences for forging a vaccine passport in those countries? So more food for thought. We also, on the news, Mark Meadows is no longer going to cooperate with the January 6th Commission because they expressed, after kind of luring him in and he was going to voluntarily go in there, they let his attorneys know that they would not focus their questioning just to the January 6th, that they wanted to expand on that and outside of their the scope of the January 6th riot, and also that they would want to inquire more in privilege, so executive privilege, which his attorneys had advised him not to go with. Devin Nunes, on the other hand, he's going to be leaving Congress to take over the Trump's media engine that will be coming out soon. So expect Devin Nunes to step down from Congress. A lot of people were saying that he probably could not win re-election because of the redistricting. However, that said, I think that he probably could have won even with the district lines. It probably would have been a little bit more friendlier to him from some of the research that's been done out there. But he has chosen to go to Trump's media enterprise that's coming. So we'll see what becomes of that. Good luck to him. And we have another, in the other news that wasn't too interesting, but there's a sheriff out there that wants to put Andrew Cuomo behind bars. Of course, there was a tape of this sheriff in the past that he says he knew how to exactly manipulate the law, and he has gotten pretty good doing it. Craig DeApple Sr., who was then an under sheriff of the Albany County, New York, was recording that saying to a group of county investigators at one point. So now this recording has resurfaced now that he's mentioned that he would like to arrest Andrew Cuomo with the sexual accusation. I guess it's a misdemeanor that he wants to arrest him for. So who knows what his agenda is, but nevertheless, these are the political games played in New York. Apple's Tim Cook signed a $275 billion deal with the Chinese officials to placate them. There was a lot of information come out of that, where the Apple CEO signed an agreement with China officials estimated to be worth about $275 billion. This is according to Reuters. and because they wanted to placate him because that would have hobbled his devices and services in the country. So here again, we have American company not giving a damn about what that can do for national security and placating the Chinese government. Granted, they're huge. There's a huge market, but nevertheless, those are things that that you need to think about. Uh, and this was a kind of a cool story that I found, and my mother lives in Switzerland, so I kind of caught my eye. And they have approved an assisted suicide capsule. Assisted suicide is legal in that country as well as in 3 or 4 other countries, including the Netherlands and Europe. So it's a new way to die by assisted suicide that's composed by it's called a Sarcos suicide pod, which is a 3D printed portable coffin-like capsule with has windows, can be transported to anywhere you want. Uh, of course, you have to pass certain questionnaires and whatnot to be able to be approved for assisted suicide. And you got to qualify. The who wants to die, you got to answer an online survey. That means they have to prove whether they're making the decision on their own accord. If they pass, they'll be told the location of the pod and given an access code. Once inside, what it does, it floods the interior with nitrogen, which quickly reduces the oxygen level inside from 21% to 1%. The person will get into the capsule, lie down, and they said it's very comfortable. He said the person will likely feel disoriented and euphoric. The whole thing takes about 30 seconds. That takes place through hypoxia and hypocapnia, oxygen and carbon dioxide deprivation, respectively. There is no panic and no choking. So in 2020, around 1,300 people died by assisted suicide in Switzerland, almost all by ingesting liquid sodium pentobarbital, which puts a patient into a deep coma before killing them. It's also, like I said, like I mentioned before, is legal in the Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Canada. So that, I thought that was kind of a little tidbit there that you might be interested in. Anyways, think about all the things that we talked about today, but particularly pay attention to China. China is not our competitor. They are our adversary. This is my opinion. You may have a difference of opinion. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Go ahead and subscribe to the Carlos M Show. And remember, if you're at home with your loved ones, tell them you love them, because tomorrow is never promised. If you're at work, please be safe. Come back home the way you went in. And may your God bless you. Have a great afternoon.